Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, you won't believe it, but winter is coming, and we're going to talk about weatherization assistance. But first, a number of important stories. It's called Breaking News out of the state capitol in Harrisburg. We'll get to that and more after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, we have a number of important subjects to talk about. Joining me, as often is the case, is Marc Levy. He's with the Associated Press, and Charlie Thompson. He's with the Harrisburg Patriot News and PennLive. Well, I'll tell you, the four state-related universities, as they're called, these are not state-owned, but they have a relationship. They get a good bit of money from the state. I'm talking about the University of Pittsburgh, Penn State University, Temple University, and Lincoln University. All now have received their appropriation from the state of Pennsylvania. Take it.
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue that's been kicking around as one of the loose ends of the budget debate this summer, when the General Assembly passed a general appropriations bill to keep the core elements of state government funded, and Governor Shapiro signed that into law, but they left undone a number of sort of the sidecars that always come along, and one of them is the massive state appropriation to our flagship public universities, Penn State, Pitt, and Temple, and they finally got that agreement done this year.
Yeah. These are powerful institutions that have, tremendous lobbying capacity. Plus, look at these alums. Hundreds of thousands of alums all over the state of Pennsylvania. So the four of them wield considerable influence.
Sure, they didn't have enough influence though to get an increase in their appropriation this year. Lincoln University did, and it goes down to Republicans saying we don't want to see tuition increases from you, and if there's a tuition increase, we're not going to give you an increase in subsidy this year.
So that was sort of the deal?
That was the deal, and Democrats wanted to give a 7% increase to these schools. Eventually, Democrats decided that we just need to get them the money. They need the money. They use it, in theory, to keep in-state tuition down. And the institutions say, well, we can't keep tuition down. We can't keep tuition flat unless we get more money from you. And the backdrop here, Terry, is that Pennsylvania is last in the nation on just about every measurement there is on higher education affordability. And it goes back to Pennsylvania is basically the worst state in the nation when it comes to funding higher ed.
Yeah, well, we have a huge number of private institutions, colleges and universities as well. Yeah,
I mean, higher education is actually I think a relative strength in Pennsylvania. There's many towns across the state that have small private liberal arts institutions.
You bring up a great big point, and they are employers for the local communities. They hire people to do all sorts of work, not normally teaching, and they spend the college and university monies in these communities as well.
And the state-relateds are in this hybrid situation where, they are essentially state-related, like as you pointed out, not state-owned, like the Shippensburgs, Millersvilles, Edinburghs of the world. But they're independent universities that receive state aid. And one of the pieces of this debate that always comes up is, well, how much access should the public have to your university records under the right to know law? And that filtered into this discussion again this year. I think there's a companion piece of legislation as part of this deal that's going to not put them necessarily fully under the right to know law, but will expand the kind of data that they have to file annually on the public record.
Particularly when it comes to contracts and salaries, that's that sort of expansion there of public information.
Well, let's run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about something that happened, the cost of living adjustment, and Marc Levy will explain that. Charlie will join in after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, Marc Levy, let's talk about something called cost of living adjustment. What is it and why is it important?
So we're talking about 70,000 retirees who worked for the state or the public schools. Probably all of them belong to the unions. And the unions and Democrats have pushed for legislation that would give their pensions a boost. Many of them are in their 80s. Their life expectancy, according to actuarial reports, is around 10 years. And Democrats say that, they haven't had a cost of living adjustment in their pension for about 20 years, and we're now talking
20 years, no
20
cost
years,
of living.
no cost of living adjustment. We're talking about after 2 years of high inflation. So Democrats are trying to give them a couple $100 extra a month. It would come out to, the estimate is about $1.8 billion in total cost over, say, roughly 10 years, and that would be paid back by essentially the taxpayers of the state as well as property taxpayers who fund schools.
Now, you said Democrats. Are Republicans on board on this?
Well, honestly, I kind of think there was a surprising amount of bipartisan support for the bill because this thing has been kicking around since 2002. In 2001, of course, they made the great mistake on, expanding pension benefits for everybody that was actively employed at that time. This subset of people was kind of frozen out of that benefit increase, and they've been getting they did get a cost of living adjustment in 2002, but this used to happen every 3 or 4 years on a regular basis. Hasn't happened since 2002 because the state had this huge financial hangover from the pension increase for the active employees. People were afraid to touch it, couldn't really afford it. That situation's a little different now with the state running surpluses and the employer contribution rate, which I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but it's kind of plateaued now.
Right. Is this a done deal?
They're fully funding this.
Is this a done deal?
It's not a done deal. It passed the House. It's in the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans, 28-22. And Republicans have said, look, we're sympathetic to the plight. We'll take a look at it. In the House, the debate sort of revolved around this is a very small group of people who are helping here with a lot of money. There's other ways to help a broader subset of 80-somethings with, say, property tax and rent rebates, things like that.
Yeah, but could I just add real quickly that, I think it definitely has a chance because I think that one thing that stopped this before was that you just didn't have a leadership group that was willing to hit the start button. Well, the House Democrats did that, and I think it's going to be hard for the Senate Republicans to say no in the end.
All right, big turnout for the court elections that took place. Obviously, the Democrats were favored because of the abortion issue. I think most of our viewers are aware of that, but there was spending increases, correct?
Yeah, and I'll let Mark talk to the spending, but I'll just say that one thing that I had done a story on towards the end of last week was just taking a look at some of the turnout, and it was surprisingly high if you compare it to 4 years ago when the last set of similar seats was up. Part of the reason for that is obvious. We have mail-in voting now that we didn't before, and that is reaching pockets of voters that maybe wouldn't have participated. But the other thing was turnout was driven by intense spending for a state Supreme Court race and intense interest in school board races at the local level that kind of became a proxy war for a lot of the national political debate that we've been having.
Mark?
Yeah, look, turnout statewide hit 35%. That's a record at least for the past 2 decades. Information before that takes time to access from the Department of State. But this is an odd-year election, so most people don't vote. But spending in the state Supreme Court race exceeded $22 million. It might be, once all the reports are in, it might be closer to $25 million. And that smashes the record, and it follows a Wisconsin state Supreme Court race in April that cost upwards of $50 million. So partisans on all sides are realizing that these races are important, and they're treating them like more conventional political races for governor or U.S. Senate.
Good point. All right, well, look, I want to thank you both for coming in and providing this important update. All right, as I indicated earlier, winter is coming, and let's talk about weatherization assistance, what to do about it, how to get it, and we'll have that and more on energy coming up.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Yes, winter is coming. Let's talk about weatherization assistance and other energy topics. And joining me to do that is Donna Clark. She's the Vice President and General Counsel with the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, and Nicole Luciano. She's the Manager of Policy and Research, also with the Energy Association. All right, Donna, I'm going to start with you. Weatherization assistance, what's that all about?
Well, we represent or work with the large public utilities in the state, large and small public utilities, gas and electric, and they offer various types of assistance. They offer customer assistance programs, they offer weatherization, and the customer assistance programs that they offer help low-income customers pay their bills. They reduce the amount of the bill, and they help them pay their bills each month. Weatherization is a program where they work with outside agencies, and they go in and help them weatherize and improve the quality of their homes.
You know, is it worthwhile if you're a customer to call, you know, the folks who supply your energy, to talk with them about weatherization and about what they should be doing to check things out? I mean,
absolutely,
because energy can end up costing a lot of money.
Right. And you could be, like Donna was saying with the weatherization, you could be losing energy right through inefficient windows or inefficient appliances. So yes, we would always encourage customers to call their utility. I'll just point out that who supplies your energy might be different if you're shopping for the supply.
Good point.
But the only person who can help you weatherize your home is your utility. So the person who sends you your bill, that's who you want to call.
Yeah. Is that another way to put this, be energy wise, or are there other aspects to that in terms of what you do in your own home?
Right. So in terms of free education, all the utilities will have that kind of information on their websites, like where to keep your thermostat during the winter, so when you're home and away, for comfort and for energy savings. So you don't have to have anybody come in your home if you don't want to, but you can learn all those kinds of tips on their website.
Yeah, and you give us a website. We'll get it up on the screen. Same question to you, energy assistance.
Well, again, as I was talking about customer assistance programs, all of our utility members have customer assistance programs for low-income customers, and they consist of helping you with pay your bill, doing weatherization, maybe pointing out where you can get various other funds from community organizations, or giving you some leads to other sources of assistance, food assistance in the community. The other program that exists in the state for energy assistance, and the utilities work on this program, is LIHEAP, Low Income Heating Emergency Program. So that program has opened, and it's available, and it provides additional funds to help, again, low-income customers.
Well, how do you reach them?
That's through DHS. So you can, DHS, it's the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services.
Okay.
So you can reach out to them or to your utility, and you can apply over the phone, online, via paper. And as Donna was saying, this is just cash assistance. So if you're income qualified, you can receive assistance to pay your energy bills.
Yeah, maybe it's me, but some way, somehow, I think that a lot of people, maybe it's just me, don't do any of this. I mean, they simply go through, you know, their daily routine without checking, you know. They get concerned if it's cold in the house or too hot, depending on the season, right?
Well, I think that as Nicole was saying earlier, you know, with respect to utilities, if you are having difficulty paying your utility bill, you're going to know that. The utility is going to remind you of that. And the utility then is going to try to direct you to these types of programs, whether it's LIHEAP in the winter or the customer assistance programs offered by the utility. A lot of times we see people coming in when they're struggling to pay their bill. And that can happen in the winter when your heating bill goes up.
And Pennsylvania is a big energy producing state in general.
Right. So again, what we've seen is that whether prices are high or low, you know, these programs are available year-round, and some of them are available to you regardless of your income. So one thing that Donna didn't mention yet was budget billing. So again, say we're going into winter, you're going to be using a lot more electricity or gas to keep your home comfortable. You could start right now before you even owe anything and say, hey, I know that I'm going to get big bills. I'd like to kind of spread that out over the months where I don't typically have big bills in those shoulder months, and it helps it make more affordable.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things I want to get into has to do with, you know, social media. You have LinkedIn, you have Twitter, and other social mobility, a way for folks to understand and to follow what's going on in energy.
And so not only does the Energy Association use social media, but all of our members use social media. So if you contact your utility, you go on their webpage. I believe all of them are on Instagram and Twitter, and you can get that kind of information, as well as the Public Utility Commission. And I would have to believe the Department of Human Services. So the information is readily available. We try through various ways to get the word out to the help that's available.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we get back, there's something you refer to as be energy wise. We'll get to that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, we're talking about energy policy. It's very, very important, and I want to talk about be energy wise.
Sure. So just like we were talking about, this is a website that the Energy Association put together so that if you don't know your utility and you just want to get some more information, you can go to this webpage and get weatherization tips. And then it's also a link to every utility's who's a member of ours, their weatherization program, so you can find more specific information.
Yeah,
and I think that reaching out to your utility became particularly important during the pandemic, during COVID.
Yeah,
you know, we saw a lot of difference. You know, during COVID, many of our members and then the PUC stepped in, and we weren't doing collections. So we were making sure people paid their bills, but if you fell behind your bill, the utility wasn't reaching out and seeking to terminate your service, because we knew that people were struggling. And that's another area that we saw a lot of activity of people reaching out for customer assistance.
So that was a big effect of COVID, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people did fall behind, but there was an unprecedented amount of assistance too. So again, some of these programs are still open. Again, as was mentioned before, LIHEAP is open, that's available. There was the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the Homeowners Assistance Program. There was just an unprecedented amount of funds, but you know, people are still struggling to get back out from under that. So
Yeah. Well, energy, I'm sure, is a big part of anybody's, you know, of the average family's budget.
Yes, and particularly, again, if your budget is smaller, it's a much larger portion of the budget because it's based on usage, not based on income, what your bill is. So again, we would recommend that people reach out to the utility if they're if they're struggling paying bills. In fact, we would urge people to be proactive. If you know things are changing in your family income, reach out to your utility ahead of time.
See, I think that's an extremely important point that needs to be re-emphasized. Make sure you reach out to your utility.
Yeah, I mean, and I know it can be scary, right? Because you see your utility as somebody who sends you a bill every month, right? But again, they have so many programs. The people who are there really want to help. And again, they want to help you before you get behind and before you can't ever catch up, because then that's not good for anybody, right? So before you're in trouble, if you're feeling like, oh, it's a little tight, call the utility and they can get you onto something that will help.
Many governors typically have an energy policy. How about Governor Shapiro? Is it too early in his administration?
Well, I think there's been a lot going on in that area. I think former Governor Wolf had tried to join RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. That is among the states surrounding us, and so we were going to seek to join that. But just recently, there was a court decision that said that if we are going to join RGGI, we need to do that through the legislature and not through an executive order of the governor. So at this point, I think in terms of energy policy, we're waiting to see whether or not perhaps he appeals that decision, or whether or not he moves on and maybe takes a look at some of the statutes that have been on the books for a while, and see if we need to update them in areas of, say, renewable energy.
Yeah, there have been controversies over the years about energy in our state. You know, coal obviously was very important at one point. Natural gas is very important right now, and there's ups and downs and pros and cons, and that debate, does that in and of itself have an effect on the consumer cost?
I mean, the debate itself, no. Again, we're encouraged that the governor says that he's in all of the above kind of energy policy, and we think that kind of helps keep prices as stable as possible. Again, Pennsylvania is a net energy exporter, so we make more energy than we use, and we think that makes Pennsylvania a pretty strong state in the nation. So we don't really want to, you know, we wouldn't encourage anybody to try to do anything too drastic to jeopardize that. I think that's where you might get heavy price swings, is if something changes really drastically overnight.
And it tends, go ahead.
And from a utility perspective, you know, from a utility perspective, the keys are reliability and affordability. So we're looking at making sure there's sufficient energy available in the marketplace and that it is affordable. And then we're looking to make sure that our systems, the wires, the poles, the pipes in the ground that deliver natural gas are in a good state from an infrastructure perspective and reliable.
That's a good point. And you made, I think, an invaluable comment when you said reliable energy. The source has to be reliable, correct?
Right. I mean, again, I mean, I'm sure you've seen over the last couple of years some issues in other places where the grid was really strained, right? And people had blackouts or even long times without energy. And again, we never want to see that happen in Pennsylvania. So our utilities are focused on that.
All right, thanks. Very important update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.